Well, welcome to Madison tonight. We're thrilled to have you with us online. We've got some people here live in the auditorium, and that makes it great. And we're very, very thankful. It's been kind of one of those wild days. I took a 4-mile walk in Warren Park this morning, and as soon as we finished the walk, I got in my car and the downpour came. So I felt like God had a little umbrella over me until just that moment. So that was really good. Hope you've had a good day today. A couple of reminders about next Wednesday night. So that's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So our Hispanic congregation, together with some other things that Sheldon's doing, will have a Cinco de Mayo meal downstairs in the fellowship hall. And you need to sign up on Sunday. I think it's about $5 per person, but a lot of our Hispanic members are going to be preparing authentic kinds of tacos. And we got some other special things. No margaritas. I know that may disappoint some, but no margaritas, no tequila. So, but anyway, we'll have a good time. 5:15. Then at 6:30 will be Stories of Amazing Grace. And if you got the email today, the thing I need to let you know is that Lynn Nolan is not going to be able to be interviewed that night. Her son died. I don't know any of the details about that, but Larry emailed me. And Lytle Thomas of Inner City Ministries. That's who Larry's going to be interviewing that night. And then the show that's being streamed is Larry's interview with Patrick Mead, who is a minister who was at 4th Avenue, has now started another church called Safe Harbor. And so that should be an interesting interview for some of you. So tonight, I'm very excited. We have Tommy Cothron with us on stage. And Tommy, thank you for being with us tonight. And last week, Frank interviewed Andrew Jack. I heard that was good. I've not had a chance yet to listen to that, but thank you for doing that. And so, Tommy, my dear friend, what we want to do is just let you have some time to talk. We may interrupt every once in a while, but talk a little bit about how God's been working in your life from that kind of early on as a child, and people who were influential and things that have drawn you closer to God and that kind of thing. That's what we want to talk about a little bit. So where were you born and raised? Where did all this happen?
Well, I'll give you a little short bio. I was born in Hartsville, Tennessee, almost on the Macon County, Charleston County line, but in Hartsville, in a little white house up there. I was born in a house. I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born in a home. I guess that's back when doctors were still making house calls. So, and just so happens, several years ago, Meg and I took a little Sunday afternoon drive because she said, I want to see this house where you were born, okay? So we took a little Sunday afternoon drive up to the house there in Hartsville. And as we approached the house, it's right off Highway 10 there. We drove up, and as we got in front of it, it didn't look too good. It was kind of run down. Everything was grown up. The grass was high. And so she said, I can't believe you're born here. And so anyway, we went on with our Sunday afternoon drive. And when we got home, she said, I wish I'd have taken a picture of that because I would like to show your boys where you were born, what kind of conditions you were born in. Even though it was 60 years prior to that. So fast forward a few months, and we decided, well, let's take another drive up there. I'll let you take a picture and make fun of me and all of that. So we started to approach the house again, and as we got closer, I noticed it looked a little different. So we got up right in front of it, and they had spruced the place up. They had painted it. They had trimmed the shrubs, cut the grass, painted it all up. And I know Meg was so disappointed that they had gotten that house fixed up so that she could not make fun of me to my children and our family. So anyway, but I lived there till about 3 years old, and then we moved a couple of miles away from Charleston County over into Macon County, and so I went to school in Lafayette until I was through the 3rd grade, and then we moved to Gallatin, which is really where I grew up, in Gallatin. Went to school in Gallatin, graduated from Gallatin High School. And my mother, you're talking about my faith and how that all got started. My mother was one of those 3 times a week church. I grew up in the Baptist church, but we were there every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, Wednesday night. My father was a baptized believer, but he was not a churchgoer. So, but my mother was, that didn't hinder my mother. So I grew up in the Baptist church there. I graduated from, like I said, Gallatin High School, and then I've always been a Middle Tennessean, except when I was off in school. I went 2 years to UT Knoxville to do my pharmacy pre-work, and then spent 4 years in Memphis, where the medical units are, to do my pharmacy degree. So then when my second year in pharmacy school, at the end of my second year, met a young lady with an unusual name, Mac. And so I guess the rest is history. We got married, and in 1976, and then we moved back to Middle Tennessee. We both had graduated from pharmacy school. I ended up actually getting a job at the hospital in Gallatin, which was kind of unusual. I thought I'd never be able to work in my hometown, but it just worked out that way. And Matt got a job at Vanderbilt at the hospital pharmacy there. So we kind of looked for some place to settle, kind of in between Gallatin and Nashville. And Mick's aunt, Martha Uffelman, went to church here for many years. So we lived right up the road here at the Heritage House Apartments. And so we decided we would, come to Madison. And so we did that. We got involved. Madison was a great place then, and it is now as well. But
very different.
Very different. But it was thriving. It's easy to get involved, and lots of things going on. So I became a deacon and got involved with certain things and neighborhood zone, neighborhood groups. And then Mac left Vanderbilt and got a job at Hendersonville Hospital. And so we decided, well, we need to be a little bit closer to our two jobs. We were living here in Madison. And so we decided to move to Gallatin on the Hendersonville side of Gallatin so that we were between our two jobs. But we still came to Madison. People would ask us, why are you still going to Madison? And you pass half a dozen churches going to Madison. And I would just always say, well, Madison's my church family. That's where I wanted my boys to be raised. And so, because they had great children's programs. In fact, good example of the people here that were serving at Madison. One day when we were after church going home, my youngest son's in the back seat. You kind of ask, well, what'd y'all learn in Sunday school today? And my youngest son just kind of casually said, and Miss Liz Henderson was over the Sunday school program. And he just kind of casually said, well, Miss Liz, she's all about Jesus. And I thought, what a compliment, to think, to give somebody that they're all about Jesus.
All about Jesus.
And so we all should strive to have that compliment. But we continue to be involved here, and really, as far as me being asked to serve as an elder here.
Yeah, before we do that, because you covered a lot of territory.
Okay.
So I know becoming an elder here was very important for you. So before we get to that, let's go backwards.
Okay.
So were you an only child? Did you have brothers and
I
sisters?
have 2 brothers. They were 10 years older and 12 years older. So I was
my.
kind of like an only child because they were so much older than I was. So they were, by the time I got very old, they were pretty much grown and out of the house. So Meg would say I'm an only child because she said my mother treated me like an only child, and so babied me. So, but anyway.
Well, that's interesting. Now, you said a little bit about your mother as far as she went to church all the time, but was there anything about her in particular that you felt like had a big impact on you spiritually, besides the fact that she just was consistent about going to church?
Well, I mean, she was very much a woman of the Word, and had always one of those people who had something kind to say about everybody. unless you did something to her children or her grandchildren. Then it became a little more confrontational. But she was always inspiring to me, just because my father didn't attend regularly, but she wasn't going to let that impede her from making sure that I was in the church and that I was developing my relationship with Jesus and God.
Okay. So were you like, did they have a youth program at church where you were growing up?
Yes.
Were you involved in that? Do you have a leadership role in that, or what?
I was involved in that, and so I mean, it's not like it is today here at Madison, where we didn't have a youth minister, but they had programs for the kids and things like that. So I was always there with the group of friends that we grew up with there, and local neighborhoods and things like that. So,
did any of those friends have a big role? Like for me, there were friendships at Madison that were huge in my spiritual development. Were there any friendships there, or with any Christians your age, that made a difference, do you think?
Well, I think we all have role models that are important to us. So, and there were those that I looked up to and tried to model my life after, because I saw the life they were living. But so yeah, I would say, not specifically by name, but I did have those role models, and some older, some younger.
Okay.
So.
Now, in high school, did you play sports?
I did not play sports. I played a lot of intramural sports. I was always pretty athletic, really. Grew up playing baseball in Little League and things like that. But I did have my high school basketball coach ask me one time. He said, "Why did you never go out for basketball? You could have helped our team a lot." So I mean, that was flattering, but I guess I kind of focused more on studies and things like that.
Well, I was assuming you were academic. You've always been studious and thoughtful.
I was in honor society and things like that, and I guess I had an affinity for math and science and things like that, which led me to my field of study being pharmacy. So
I've got one of those hard questions. See, I always perceive you as steady, calm, centered. All these are compliments.
I'm glad you see me.
No, I perceive you like that. All right. Did you ever have a rebellious time?
I guess college years were a little more, I won't say that I was in church every Sunday when I was in college. Pharmacy school was probably some years that I didn't attend church regularly, but it kind of became that when you graduate from school and you're going to get a job and you're getting back into the workforce and you think, I need to pull my life back together, that's when things headed back in the right direction. So,
how old were you when you decided I want to be a pharmacist? What was it that led you to that decision?
There was a girl I dated in high school whose father was a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And so she decided to go to pharmacy school. So I thought, well, I'm going to follow her.
Well thought out decision on his
Rick
part.
probably wouldn't like me saying that, but
she knows
she
about
won.
it.
She won the battle. So
There you go. So, but you had that love interest.
right.
Yeah. All right. And so you followed this girl to pharmacy school, but then along comes Meg. So talk to me about, was that love at first sight? Were you really interested? You were interested in this other girl and Meg. How did all that work for you?
Well, the other young lady and I went separate ways. So, so I don't remember really the first time I met Meg, but it was, once we met, that was it. I mean, we continued to date for a couple of years, and it progressed to marriage.
Yeah. So you grew up within the Baptist tradition, but at some point you made the change to Church of Christ.
Right.
When did that happen?
That happened when Beck and I went to church together in Memphis some, and went to the Church of Christ because Mac grew up in the Church of Christ.
She did, okay.
So,
With Martha Uffelman and all that
exactly,
family.
and her whole family, except her father was Baptist, but the rest of her family was Church of Christ. So, so I didn't see a big problem with that conversion. I think a lot of the beliefs are the same. The ones that aren't the same, I could
Adjust.
adjust to that.
Yeah. So what were the things you liked best about Meg when you were dating her and all that?
She's got a good personality.
She does.
Everybody, if you know me, you know Meg, I mean, she's always around. We're always together. We're a team. We always have been. I mean, we were in the same profession. Sometimes we would come home and talk about pharmacy-related items. And our sons, would get really bored with our conversations because we would be talking about drug names and things like that they would not have anything to know about. And so, sometimes people ask me, well, did either one of your sons ever decide that they were interested in pharmacy? And neither one of them did. Our youngest son again said, I don't want to be a pharmacist because that sounds too boring. And so he became a CPA, which is,
That doesn't sound boring.
In fact, both of my sons became CPAs. They're number crunchers.
I did not know that.
And so I thought, well, maybe, I don't know what his logic was behind that.
So when you started coming to Madison, were there any people here who had a role as far as teachers that had a big impact, or elders that you really admired, or people that were a help along the way as you were growing and developing spiritually?
There were a lot of those, and I don't know if I started naming names.
Well, some, just so Frank and I might know some of them.
Well, I mean, we came when Ira North was here.
Right.
So
When do you think you got here?
1977, January of
77.
1977
Okay.
is when we started, moved back and started worshiping here. So,
Right.
Ira North, Steve Flatt, Bill Rule. Bill Rule actually married us. So we got married in Smyrna, which is where Mick was from. So
Okay.
Bill Rule married us. So lots of teachers.
The Rothschilds were here at that time, right?
Yeah, Marty was here. So
Yeah. And Martha too. Were they married at that point?
who?
Marty and Martha?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
think
I thought so. Yeah. Okay.
So, and of course, Marty's wonderful to work with, and I get the opportunity to serve with him on the eldership, and so he's been a great influence and just a mentor for me, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of when you first come on the eldership, there's a big learning curve. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of sitting around, and I'm sitting in a room with people that I really admire and I look up to.
Okay.
In fact, before I became an elder, the first time I was asked to be an elder. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time I was thinking about how much was going on at work, how much you had to do. That was one issue. But the second issue was, I don't belong in a room with these guys.
Oh, okay.
I looked up to these guys, and they were the leaders of the church. I'm thinking, I'm not there yet. And so a little time passed, and they came back and asked me if I would reconsider serving again.
Mm-hmm.
And really nothing had changed in my life. Things were still really busy at work. I still didn't think I belonged in that room with those men. So, again, I declined. But then they didn't give up on me and asked me a third time. And I thought, well, let me pray about this and think about this, because nothing has really changed in the way I'm thinking about this. And so it just so happened that my youngest son was graduating from high school.
Okay.
And he was going to, he was going to go to Samford University in Birmingham. And so we were going that week for orientation. And so we went down there, and of course they took all the students and started touring them around campus, and all the parents stayed there in the auditorium with the campus minister. And he was going to give us a devotional and a lesson and things like that. And his lesson was on Proverbs 19:21. It said, many are the plans in a person's life, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails.
Oh.
And that convicted me. I mean, here I was, trying to think about what my plans were for my life. And I really need to be thinking about what maybe God has for me.
Ah, I felt like the Lord was kind of addressing you that Sunday
So,
morning.
I mean, I think that was kind of struck me right there on the
Yeah.
spot. And on the way home, I told Mac, I said, well, I'm going to tell them that I will serve. And so I did. And so that was really, if you talk about something that has changed my life, serving on the eldership has changed my life. Because being able to be with that group of men and to grow and to pray and just be influenced by them, it's been a great honor and a privilege to serve. And so
you don't really have any regrets about that. I know there have been hard times that the church has been through, but you feel like you were called to do this, and so you're steady in the boat.
right. And so, I feel like God put me there for a reason.
Yes.
And so I was going to do what I can to serve in that way. And, there's tough decisions that need to be made.
Yes.
And tough situations that need to be handled. And so.
When was this that you made the decision to?
Oh, that was almost 15 years ago. It'd be 15 years ago this June.
So 2006? Okay.
June of 2006.
So there'd already been kind of the big troubled time at Madison.
bit,
So where
yeah.
my father was no longer an elder then when you came on, right? He was gone.
Right.
Yeah. Was J.D. one of the elders at that point?
He was one of the elder emeritus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he had stepped down
All right.
prior to that. Steve Smith had been an elder about a year.
Okay.
I think Marty's been an elder 20 years, and Buck's probably the longest tenured
think
elder
so.
that we currently have.
So was Buck, when your sons were growing up, was he still youth minister, or he was no longer youth minister when that?
He wasn't youth minister when the
Okay.
boys were,
All right.
but really Shayna was here.
Okay.
Shayna and Tori Treadway
Tory.
were
okay.
here when my two sons were here.
All right.
So they got the opportunity to be with them, and so that was very. The whole experience of raising our boys here was a good experience because Meg and I are both retired, and our oldest son now has two granddaughters. So.
And y'all moved.
And so we've moved from Gallatin to Franklin because we both retired. And so we didn't see anything holding us in Gallatin any longer. And it was taking us an hour to get to Brentwood. They live in Brentwood. And so we decided to make that move to Brentwood. But people began asking us when we told them we were moving
all
to
nervous.
Franklin.
Yeah.
They said, well, are you still going to go to Madison? And I said, well, yeah, because Madison's my church family, so I believe that very strongly. And some of the criteria when we started looking for places to move in Williamson County was, one, we want to get close to the children, and two, we want to be someplace where we could get to Madison, and it wouldn't take very long. So
I'm very thankful for that.
I like what he's saying about that, how you look at the church as really your family. It's not necessarily all the extravaganza of what happens. It's the people that keeps you here.
people, the relationships, that I've known for years and years.
Yeah.
So
They're your family.
that's right.
What do you think were some of the early lessons you learned as an elder that, I mean, because when you take on that role as leader, it changes. You're no longer just a member. You are still a member here, but it had this kind of new level of responsibility. Do you remember any of the things that began to change for you, spiritually even, in assuming that responsibility?
I think by nature I'm kind of a peacemaker, so I always tried to play that role as being
You're
a
good at it.
peacemaker.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's challenging, but
A bit.
kind of like my mother, I always try to just say nice things about people. But it's sometimes in your challenges is when you're drawn closer to God. Many times in your challenges when you are drawn closer to God,
Yes.
and you feel that need,
Mm-hmm.
because in order to lead, you got to lean on
You
Him,
do.
and you got to lean on Jesus,
You do.
and to look at how perhaps they would handle these situations, and the Bible teaches us that. It teaches
It
us
does.
how to handle situations that we experience in life.
So are there things that you do that kind of feed your spiritual life now?
I mean, I read. I'm not a voracious reader, and I don't read. But I do. I don't read. I read lots of different authors. Francis Chan, Yancey, Cato, Timothy Keller. Jesus the King, the book you gave to Mac. Even Hearing God, Dallas Willard, some of those.
Yeah.
So I read more of not so much the author. I just read, if somebody says, this is a really good book by this author, then I tend to gravitate to the subject matter more than the author itself. So.
Okay. So I know one of the things that's been very important, you've already mentioned, is this relationship with Mec. And a few years ago, you both began to face a big challenge together.
Right.
Now, can you talk to us some about that and the impact that's had on the relationship, on your relationship with God, all that? Can you talk to us some about that?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, maybe a little more than a couple of years ago, Beck was experiencing what she thought was a sinus infection. And so went to the doctor. Doctor gave her antibiotics. Didn't clear up. So sometimes sinus infections can be really difficult to treat. So doctor gave her 30 days worth of antibiotics. Still didn't get any better. So the next step was, let's do a CT scan and see what's going on in the sinus area. So when they did that, they saw a mass there, and they did a biopsy, and it turned out to be cancer or carcinoma, a very rare carcinoma. The more I've read about it, there's only several hundred cases ever been found of this particular type of cancer.
Wow.
It was only discovered back in 1986, and since it's in the sinus and nasal area, most of the people who had this type of cancer were men, smokers, worked in coal factories, something you would think that you breathe in to cause that. But Mac didn't fit the mold on any of that. But we were blessed to be in a part of the country where we have great medical facilities, and so and I think she had a great physician in Dr. Jim Netterville.
Yeah.
And so she went through, with this type of cancer, you kind of treat it with, multi-modalities. She had chemo, she had radiation, she had surgery. In fact, with chemo and radiation, her immunity got so bad that she went into septic shock.
I remember that. That
And
was
so
scary.
her immunity was practically wiped out so she spent a week or 10 days in the hospital, and so very serious there. So once she got over that, then she had surgery. And so that left some permanent scars, that she had to go through. But what is really so inspiring, I talked about my mother being a great influence in my life, but she has really been a great influence and so inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Because never once did she say, why me, or why is this happening to me? She just drew closer to God. I mean,
yeah, her attitude has been, I've been with a lot of cancer patients over my years, spent a lot of time in hospitals, and her attitude has been, just, it's what every doctor wants, is that attitude. Because if you have that attitude, it creates the possibility of, it enhances the possibility of healing. Now, so talk, when she was in intensive care, because I remember that time. I remember coming out of the hospital and I personally was scared. So that's...
both of us.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with something that intense, because for a while there, it just was, it was very hard to see mech like that. So how did that, what was going on in your head during all that time?
Well, I think like I said a little bit earlier, when things are the worst is when you need God the most. So I think that's when we were both drawn closer because with the septic shock, statistics say that 40 to 50% of the people that have septic shock that go into ICU, don't make it. So, she was there in the emergency department, and her blood pressure was like 60/30, and they were pumping blood and starting antibiotics. It's just, and I'm sitting there helpless, praying that everything's going to be okay.
And you also know what all this means. Because with being in pharmacy and medical background,
Sure, yeah.
There are a lot of people who a doctor can say things and you go, okay, this is going to be okay. And you're kind of going, I know what this could be.
Well, in
And
fact,
she does too.
Yeah, and in fact, of course, at Vanderbilt Teaching Hospital, you got in that, I can remember that day, lots of doctors, lots of interns, lots of residents, they're all watching what's going on. And one of the doctors, when they decided, once they got her stabilized and decided to transfer her from the emergency department up to ICU, one of the doctors said, well, I'm going to go with her. And I noticed she had a syringe in her hand. I don't know for sure whether she thought, well, something could happen between the time we leave here and get up there, so I want to be there in case something happens. So very trying time.
Yes.
But
and I know we were praying here at church constantly for her and for you.
And that just makes a world of difference. You don't realize how much that means. And if you're a person that writes cards to people, I want you to know how important that is, because I would go to the mailbox just pretty much every day, and there'd be 6 to 10 cards every day. She'd begin to put them in a basket, and that basket overflowed, and she got a bigger bed. And so, she kept most of those cards for a really long time just because they were very important to her. So.
Yeah, I remember coming by one day where actually she had begun to turn the corner, and that smile was back. Just brought me great joy to have that sense of she's there, and we're gonna make it through this.
Well, she always kept a great attitude.
She did, always.
And I think that's vitally important. If you're ever facing health issues, I think it's very important the attitude you have, because I think that will help you get better if you maintain a good attitude and stay close to God and just know that He's there for you, and just pray for that peace and comfort that only He can provide.
Yes.
So.
What I find fascinating is you and Mac, you drew closer to God. You were close to one another already, but so many people, they do turn away from God.
Right.
And they're just angry and where is God and why isn't he doing this or that? But there must be something deep inside both of you that you go to God when there's trouble and you don't go the opposite way.
Well, I think that's just that developing that relationship. I mean, it develops over your lifetime. I mean, you never stop.
Yeah.
And so,
So I know Jim Netterville, but can you talk just a little bit about him? Because he's just one of the, not only is he a great surgeon with a really international reputation, but he's also a deep Christian. So could you just talk briefly about him and your experience with him?
Dr. Netterville, he first time Mick ever saw Dr. Netterville, he walks into the room and he's just like a grandfatherly type, and he's so loving and concerned, but confident that things are going to be okay. So that's very encouraging too, and comforting that the people that are taking care of you are confident. And like you said, he's world renowned for his skills.
Yes,
He's the
yes.
chairman of the department over there at Bill Wilkerson. So just a wonderful man.
And just that Christian commitment is, I think,
He always asked about you. He said, "How's Russ doing?" Because y'all went to school. Did y'all go to school together?
about the same time. But he also, when we started Encouragement Ministries, he was on the board for a long time and part of that, and really helped make all that work and create opportunities at Vanderbilt when I was there. And but always, just really, he's a brilliant man, but also has a humble heart. And he's one of those, I've been blessed to know some great doctors, and he's one of the very best. And in this day of medicine, the way it has gone, you're always very appreciative with these doctors who have great compassion and love for the patient, but also who are really skillful in what they do. You want both.
Right.
Not just great bedside manner, but expertise. So one of the things, I need to kind of make sure that, so one of the things that, so when I was hired here, we had 4 senior staff people leave, and I had just been hired, Nathan had been hired, Anthony was being hired, and you had just become retired.
Right.
And so one of the things I felt like was needed was the staff and elders were not always working well together, and I felt like one of the things we needed was an elder to be a part of the staff meetings. And you were the one I asked because I knew you were retired and would have a little extra time. But I felt awkward asking because, when you retire, it's that kind of thing like, well, I got things I want to do. But I remember asking you, and I also remember some staff members being a little bit uncomfortable that there's going to be an elder in all of our staff meetings. But one thing, again, what I explained was we've got the elders and staff at Madison have got to live on the same page. We don't have to agree about every detail, but we've got to be in agreement and talking back and forth and developing relationships. And you played such a big role in the healing of this church by simply being Tommy, being faithful, always having that smile, that peacemaker ability. I watched. It didn't take long for all the staff to feel like, well, he's one of us. And that's probably something that our church doesn't know much about, but it was really key in the healing of this church and our moving ahead much faster than I think we would have. And I really appreciate that. What was your thinking when you said, okay, I'll do that? Were you reluctant? What did you think when I was...
When I was thinking about retiring, Mick was still working, and so I said, and things at work never get easier. So I was at the age I could retire, and so Mick was working at home. She worked 28 years at Hendersonville Hospital, and she was working at home. So she said, I don't mind what I'm doing. I work here at home. So I said, you can go ahead and retire. And I said, well, I could do some more things at church and have more time to devote to things like that. So that seemed just like a simple thing I could do because the elders, the staff, we're a team, really. I mean,
We should be.
Elders are there for leadership, but the staff is so important, as well as the deacons and
Yes.
and all the members. I mean, the church is the body of Christ, and so we have different talents and can do different things. So that was just something I felt like I had the time and had the demeanor to do.
Well, I'm very grateful that you did it. I also thought, I know for 4 years we had the Worship Leader Institute, and you were kind of our point person to coordinate things with them. And once again, that role of peacemaking and working together and coordinating, you're really good at that. And I know in talking to Keith Lancaster and Bill, what's Bill's? Brunkart, how much they appreciated you as that kind of go-to person. It just made everything go so much easier and really work well together. You're good at taking on all kinds of things and making it go better.
Well, the Hispanic ministry,
That's right.
our mission work in Mexico, Tommy has played a leadership role in all of that. I've never seen you angry.
I try not to be.
He probably masked
Well, that's
it
a
pretty
good
well.
thing.
I
that's a
think it
good
takes
thing.
quite a bit to get me there, but
I
and
noticed.
I think I'm better. I think I've matured. I mean, probably in a younger age, I was a little more prone to get angry.
When did that change?
It's just a maturing process, I think. I don't know that
So it just happened?
I don't know that there was a light switch that, just
Okay.
one day
I think that's
I'm
just
more
him.
calm. And I've always been, I guess, fairly calm, but at least on the outside.
All right. Frank, any other questions for Tommy?
No, I've just always been impressed by Tommy. He usually sits to my left in the meeting, and I find myself cueing off of him. I will look to Tommy to see what he might be thinking. Sometimes he's looking at me in maybe the same type of light. But I've always felt he's a calming presence.
He is.
In
He
our
always
church.
is reminding us we need to take action because he knows there's a tendency to talk a lot. And you're very good at trying to at least move us in the direction of making a decision or taking action because and I'm included in that, I can talk a long time about something and get focused on ideas, and you're very good at thinking about a thing, but then making a decision, taking action, getting the thing done. Yeah.
I've got one more thing. I see we're about out
We're
of
good,
time.
we're good.
So what do you see as the future for Madison? That's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question. I believe in all my heart that God put this church on this corner to serve this community.
Mm-hmm.
And God put me here to serve on this corner at this time. And so I think the possibilities are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Takes work, takes us all working together, but I think there's things out there that this community is beginning to change, and there's opportunities for our Hispanic ministry, of course, to grow.
With the new ministry.
Yeah, with a new Hispanic minister, Dennis. And so I'm encouraged. In staff meeting yesterday, Laverne was on fire.
She was, yeah.
So, I mean, she was infectious,
Yeah.
She's so excited about things that are the possibilities.
Project Connect and some other things.
Yes. So we've got some things
Yeah.
in the works that
Yeah.
hopefully will enable us to be a light in this community, which
Yeah.
we have ever since the church was established here. So we need to continue to be that light.
We do. Well, I'm so thrilled that you took the time to be with us tonight. One of the things that I mentioned to you on the telephone today was you mentioned MEC, and one of the things I've experienced in my life is sometimes you have a friendship with the husband, sometimes with the wife, sometimes a friendship with the husband and the wife. But there are those marriages where it has a quality, and you and Mec do, so it's Tommy and Mec together. So there's a third friendship. So I have a friendship with you, with her, but also the two of you together. And I look at the role she and some of the other women have played in Jackie's life. It's been so important. And Jackie was involved with another church for a long time, had friendships, but coming to Madison, I think has been not only life transforming for me, but also for Jackie. I think there were people like Mec that she came to know and love and deeply admire and just enjoy. Just that sheer, that's one thing about Mec. She's just so easy to enjoy.
Well, we have this little phrase that we use now.
Yeah, what's that?
When we moved to Franklin, and Mec's trying to pick out, your old furniture don't fit in your new house, so you got to change some things. So you maybe get a new piece of furniture, a new lamp, or a new picture, and she can't quite pick out which things she wants. She can't make a decision on that. And so our son says, it's right if it makes you smile. Okay? And so we begin adapting to that, and I try to do things that make her smile. And she'll say that to me. And then I take it a step further. I'm saying, what if you live your life in such a way that it makes God smile? I mean, what better
way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in Matthew where it talks about, the parable of the bags of gold, and the master saying, well done, good and faithful servant. That's what we all want to hear at the end of our lives. But
It is.
So we use that phrase a lot. It says, does this make you smile? Or
Yeah, so it makes me think about, so when Jesus with his disciples, don't you know that when those moments came, because there were times where he could rebuke them and say, and challenge them, but don't you know it brought them such joy when that smile stretched itself across the face and you go, oh, you did such a good job with that. And I was talking to a friend today and was telling him that I feel always a deep sense of responsibility, especially at Madison, for what I do and the fact that I get to do it with the elders and the other staff and with this church, this family. But I told him, I said, I'm always thinking that I will stand before Jesus one day and I'll have to give account of what I did here. And I believe that to be true. And so that's why I appreciate you and Frank and Marty and the other elders, because y'all are constantly encouraging. And even when I've needed some redirecting, it's always with great kindness. And you guys as leaders create an environment at Madison that I don't see it at many other churches, because I see my shepherds as men who care for the members, really care for the members, and willing to serve. And I don't see the power dynamics that I've seen in so many other churches. And not a day goes by, so both of you guys, not a day goes by that I don't pray for my elders by name.
Thank you.
And with grateful hearts, because what you do is not easy. And you're right, Madison area has a lot of opportunities, but it's also very challenging. And so I pray constantly that God will guide you guys and bless you and your families, and that there will always be joy in this. And I love it when we actually do the work together and there are smiles. It makes it really nice when you have that sense of, this is a good day.
It's an honor to serve with all these guys, and just
It is.
to honor to have this family that I call Madison.
That's right. Amen. Thank you, Tommy. Frank, would you mind, as we get ready to close, would you mind closing with a prayer, and I'll make a closing little statement here.
Father in heaven, thankful for the time that we can be together and hear more about Tommy and Mec and the influences that have shaped him, the spiritual influences and the people. And thank you that Tommy is here and his family. Continue to bless them and bless our church family. Thank you that we've been able to do this evening. We ask this through our Savior. Amen.
Thank you guys for being with us tonight. It means more than you know. It's nice to have some live faces in the audience, but it's also good to have you online with us. Remember, next Wednesday night, we'll have that Cinco de Mayo dinner, fellowship dinner, beginning at 5:15, so hope you can plan to join us for that. And then stay for Stories of Amazing Grace, where Larry will be interviewing Lytle Thomas, and that'll be a good interview. If you have to be home that night, can't get out, there'll be that streaming with Patrick Mead. Sunday is going to be kind of a busy Sunday. We've got a love offering coming up for children's ministry, Barbie and children's ministry. We've also got someone who's going to be baptized on Sunday, so we'll make sure you're a part of our worship that day. And I think all three of us want you to know that you are loved and that your being here is so important. We don't take it for granted. We are very, very grateful. And I think from what Tommy has said, and I think from what I watch in Frank and other elders, there may be other churches that might be easier situations in some ways, but I don't know any of our elders, and certainly not me, who think about leaving this place, because it is family, and it keeps drawing you back. And I want to thank you guys for being those kinds of members who are so loving, very forgiving, very patient, and just willing to be this family together. It's good. God bless you this week. Hopefully we'll see quite a few of you on Sunday, and know that we pray for you guys. God bless you. Thank you.